Hey guys, tonight we journey back, way back, to a time when the most advanced piece of tech for stargazing was, well, your own eyes and maybe a couple of well-placed sticks. We're diving into the quiet daily lives of ancient Maya astronomers. Imagine, you're there, deep in the Central American rainforest, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and 1,000 unseen blossoms. The cicadas are your constant companions, their chorus a living pulse in the darkness. Your job? To decipher the heavens, to read the stories written in starlight. A task that means long, still nights and even longer, patient observations. You probably won't survive this level of historical detail without dozing off, which, let's be honest, is kind of the point here. Forget thrilling battles or dramatic courtly intrigue. We're exploring the gentle, persistent rhythm of celestial scholarship, one sunrise, one planetary alignment at a time. It's a world away from your buzzing phone and endless notifications. Here, the only alerts are the croak of a tree frog or the distant call of a night bird, signaling another turn in the slow dance of the cosmos. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It really helps the channel grow, and it means you won't miss out on future journeys into the sleepy corners of history. And hey, if you're feeling particularly interactive, drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first hint of consciousness brushes against your mind, as gentle and insidious as the tendril of a vine seeking purchase. It's not sound that wakes you, not yet, but a subtle shift in the quality of the darkness pressing against your eyelids. The blackness isn't quite as absolute as it was, or perhaps it's a change in the air, a slight cooling, a dew-laden dampness that seeps through the woven palm fronds of your hut's roof and walls. You lie still on your patate, the woven reed mat that serves as your bed, feeling the familiar pattern press into your back and legs. It's not exactly a memory foam mattress, but after a few years, it molds to you, or you mold to it. Then, the sounds begin, hesitant at first, then swelling into the pre-dawn chorus of the jungle. Far off, almost a vibration in your chest more than a sound, a family of howler monkeys greets the impending day with their guttural roars. They're the jungle's natural, extremely loud, and entirely unwelcome alarm clock. A daily reminder that subtlety isn't really nature's strong suit around here. Closer, a cacophony of insects, the last buzzing goodbyes of the night shift and the first tentative chirps of the day crew. A particular bird, a motmot perhaps, with its distinct rhythmic tuk-tuk-tuk-tuk, calls out, and you wonder, as you often do, if its cry means anything specific beyond, "I'm a bird and I'm awake." Some elders claim its call can predict the day's weather, a fringe tidbit of ancestral knowledge you politely acknowledge but don't entirely rely on for your celestial calculations. You stretch, a slow, deliberate uncurling of limbs. Your simple cotton hip cloth, your X, is probably twisted around you and you absently straighten it. The air inside your small dwelling is close, carrying the faint, earthy scent of dried herbs you keep bundled against insects, and the even fainter, smoky tang from last night's small fire. The floor beneath your bare feet is cool, packed earth, surprisingly pleasant. There's a practiced economy to your movements. No fumbling for a light switch here. The first grayish hint of dawn is only just beginning to seep through the doorway, a paler patch in the otherwise deep shadows. Your primary duty, your entire purpose, revolves around the sky, and that celestial clock waits for no one. The Maya, as you well know, are masters of timekeeping. Their intricate calendar systems, the long count, the Tzolk'in, the Hob, are testaments to generations of meticulous observation, a fact of Maya civilization that continues to astound modern scholars. Your role is a tiny yet vital cog in that grand chronographic machine. But before the grand observations, there are the small human routines. You feel for the gourd by your sleeping mat, hoping there's a sip of cool water left. Yesterday's rainwater, hopefully still fresh. The water is a bit lukewarm, a bit earthy, but it's wet. You think of the pungent balchi drink some of the warriors favor, fermented from honey and tree bark. Definitely not a morning beverage for someone needing a clear head for star charts. Perhaps later, a warm drink of ground maize and water, maybe sweetened with a little honey if you're feeling extravagant. Not exactly a double espresso, but it does the job. The precise nature of your living arrangements is something future historians will ponder. Historians still argue whether specialized astronomers like yourself lived in dedicated compounds very near the observatories, separate from the main populace, or if you commuted daily from a more integrated family dwelling within the bustling heart of the city-state. For you, in this moment, it's simply home, this small, functional space that keeps the worst of the rain and most of the larger spiders out. The city, its pyramids, plazas, and the stuccoed homes of the elite lies a short, familiar walk away. But here, on the fringes, the jungle's presence is more immediate, more insistent. A rustle outside, not the wind. Not, you pause, listening. A coatimundi, perhaps, its long nose snuffling for dropped fruit or an unwary beetle. Or maybe just a particularly large iguana taking an early stroll. You're used to sharing your immediate environment. The boundaries between human settlement and the vibrant, sometimes unnerving wilderness are permeable here. You reach for your mantle, a simple square of woven cotton, draping it over your shoulders against the morning chill. The air still holds the coolness of the deep night, a refreshing contrast to the humid heat that will arrive with the sun. It's time. The eastern sky is just a shade lighter now, a deep indigo softening to a bruised purple. The stars of the night, your familiar companions, are beginning to fade, surrendering their watch to the approaching sun. Your own watch, however, is just beginning. You have alignments to check, horizon points to verify, the sun's daily emergence to meticulously record. Your tools, simple as they are, await you at the observatory. And so you step out from your hut, the damp earth cool and yielding beneath your bare feet, the chorus of the awakening jungle enveloping you in its ancient, vital song. The path to the observatory is not a grand paved causeway, not here at the edges where your specific work takes place. It's a narrower track, well worn by your own feet and those of your predecessors, winding upwards. The air, as you begin your ascent, is rich with the smell of damp soil, decaying leaves, and the subtle, sweet perfume of night-blooming jasmine releasing its last fragrance before the sun claims the sky. You know every twist and turn of this path, every root that threatens to trip the unwary, every stone that offers a slightly more secure footing. You could walk it blindfolded, and some pre-dawn mornings it feels like you almost do. The structure you're heading towards isn't always a standalone, purpose-built tower in the way some grander cities like Chichen Itza boast with its famous El Caracol. Sometimes, astronomical viewing platforms are integrated into existing pyramids or palaces adapted for the purpose. Yours is a more modest affair, a solid, multi-tiered stone structure, but purposefully built with clear sightlines to the east and west. and crucial notches or window alignments that correspond to significant celestial events like the solstices and equinoxes. It's not about ostentation, it's about function. You think of it as your Najil Keen, your house of the sun, or perhaps more accurately, Najil Ekub, house of the stars. The climb is steady, not overly strenuous if you're used to it, which you are. Your leg muscles, well developed from this daily trek and countless nights spent standing or slowly pacing, carry you upward with an easy rhythm. You pass by larger, grander structures of the city center, still mostly quiet in the pre-dawn gloom. A faint plume of smoke from a communal kitchen, the muted clatter of someone else starting their day. But mostly it's your own soft footfalls and the ever-present hum of the jungle that fill your ears. You catch the coppery scent of fresh blood from a nearby platform, likely a small offering made at dawn by a priest, seeking favor for the day. You briefly ponder the difference between their appeasement of the gods and your meticulous tracking of their celestial manifestations. Two sides of the same cosmic coin, perhaps. As you ascend, the world below begins to recede, the thatch roofs of the commoners' dwellings blending into a textured carpet, the larger stone buildings of the ceremonial center emerging like islands in a sea of green. The air grows a little thinner, a little cleaner, carrying the scent of pine from trees that cling to the higher elevations around the city. You've heard tales, likely exaggerated, of astronomers in other, more mountainous regions who climb so high they can almost touch the clouds. A quaint, romantic notion, but your work demands precision, not proximity. You're not trying to reach the stars merely to understand their movements. This daily climb is a small ritual in itself, a preparation. It clears your head, focuses your mind. You think about the tasks for the day, noting the precise point of sunrise, checking the alignment of a particular stone marker with the dawn light, perhaps updating some of the glyphic records in your precious bark paper codices. Yesterday, Venus was particularly bright, a brilliant beacon in the twilight. You made a note of its position relative to the moon. Today, you'll see how that relationship has shifted. It's these tiny, incremental observations, day after day, year after year, generation after generation, that build the vast edifice of Maya astronomical knowledge. One popular misconception is that Maya astronomers exclusively used crystal skulls for their observations, a fringe tidbit that makes you chuckle internally whenever you hear it. Imagine trying to chart planetary retrogrades by squinting through a polished piece of rock. Your cross sticks and keen eyesight are far more reliable. The final set of stone steps leading to the observing platform are steeper, narrower. These were carved with observation in mind, providing stable, elevated positions. You place your hands on the cool, slightly damp stone for balance, the surface worn smooth by centuries of similar hands. There's a sense of continuity in that touch, a connection to those who came before you, who stood on this very spot, gazing at the same eternal sky. You are a link in an unbroken chain. This thought, as always, brings a quiet sense of responsibility. Historians still argue whether the small cell-like rooms often found within or beneath these observatory structures were merely for storage of instruments and records, or if they also served as rudimentary sleeping quarters for astronomers during long vigils or periods of particularly intense observational activity. You can imagine curling up in one on a cold night, the stone walls radiating a deep chill. But for now, your focus is upward, outward. As you reach the uppermost platform, the horizon broadens dramatically. The canopy of the rainforest stretches out below you like a vast, rumpled green blanket, still shrouded in morning mist in the valleys. Above, The sky is a canvas of deepening blue, the last few prominent stars winking out one by one. The air here is always cooler, fresher, and often carries a breeze that whispers through the specially constructed observation windows and alignment slots. You can see the main plaza of your city, the Great Pyramid where the Ahau, the ruler, lives and presides, the marketplace still quiet. You have a unique perspective up here, both literally and figuratively. You see the city laid out, a testament to human endeavor, and above it the immense, indifferent cosmos that governs its rhythms. You take a deep breath. The climb is done. Now the day's true work begins. The eastern horizon is tinged with the faintest rose and gold. The sun is coming, and you are ready for it. You approach your primary observation point, a spot marked by a worn depression in the stone, a place where countless observations have been made. Your simple tools, a pair of crossed sticks for sighting, perhaps a plumb bob for ensuring true vertical, are tucked into a niche in the wall, exactly where you left them. The daily grind, ancient Maya astronomer style. It probably sounds less glamorous than storming a castle. But for you, this quiet, predictable routine is the bedrock of your world. You settle into your accustomed spot. The cool stone, a familiar sensation against your skin, even through your thin mantle. The eastern horizon is now a vibrant slash of color, deep orange bleeding into saffron, a promise of the immense energy that is about to pour over the world. The air is utterly still, a held breath before the sun's arrival. This moment, repeated daily, never loses its quiet majesty for you. It's a fundamental truth. The sun will rise, and your task is to mark precisely where and when. Your eyes, highly trained for this, scan the familiar notches of the distant landscape. A particular dip between two hills, the silhouette of a distinctively shaped ceiba tree, landmarks that have been used for generations to track the sun's annual journey north and south along the horizon. This meticulous observation of the sunrise and sunset positions throughout the year is absolutely critical. It allows your people to precisely determine the solstices and equinoxes, anchoring the agricultural calendar and, by extension, the cycles of ritual and communal life. It's a foundational piece of knowledge, a mainstream historical fact about Maya astronomy. Their deep understanding of solar cycles directly influenced planting and harvesting, ensuring the sustenance of your city. You pick up your cross sticks, a deceptively simple tool. By sighting along them, holding them at arm's length, you can create a precise alignment point. Today, you're noting the sun's first gleam relative to that prominent V-shape in the eastern mountain range. Last week, it was slightly to the left. Next week, it will have shifted further. It's this subtle, daily dance that tells you the year is progressing, that the gears of the cosmos are turning as they should. It might seem like a small thing, but get it wrong. And the planting times could be off. Rituals mistimed, the cosmic balance disturbed. No pressure, right? As the first dazzling sliver of the sun finally breaches the horizon, it sends rays of light fanning across the sky, painting the underside of the few high clouds with impossible colors. You don't stare directly, of course. Even a momentary glance at the naked sun can damage your precious eyesight. Instead, you watch its growing light illuminate the landscape, marking the point where that first intense ray strikes a specific marker on your observing platform or aligns with a notch in a facing wall. These light and shadow alignments are ingenious, turning the entire observatory structure into a kind of solar clock. Perhaps there's a narrow slit in a wall that, only on the day of the solstice, allows a beam of sunlight to perfectly illuminate a glyph carved on the opposite wall. It's an elegant, silent announcement of a key celestial moment. You might make a small, temporary mark with a piece of charcoal on a smooth stone surface, or adjust a small stone counter in a carved trough. These are your working notes, precursors to the more formal records you'll make later. The intensity of the light grows rapidly, and with it, the first warmth of the day touches your face. It's a welcome sensation after the pre-dawn chill. The jungle below is now fully awake, a cacophony of screeches, calls, and chirps, a vibrant soundtrack to your silent work. Once the sun has fully risen, a blazing disk clear of the horizon, your attention shifts. You might quickly check the alignment of certain structures within the observatory itself. Are the shadows cast by key pillars falling as expected? Is that specific corner still pointing directly to the spot where the Pleiades will rise tonight? It's a constant process of verification and recalibration, ensuring your man-made environment accurately reflects the celestial one. You take a moment to prepare your actual workspace. This isn't just an open platform. There are likely sheltered areas, small niches, or even an adjoining room where you keep your more delicate instruments and records. You unroll a small mat, placing on it a few precious items. A well-used stylus, perhaps made from bone or obsidian, a small pot of black ink derived from soot mixed with a plant-based binder, and a similar pot of red ink, usually made from hematite or cochineal, for highlighting important dates or celestial events. The preparation is unhurried, methodical. There's a place for everything. One slightly quirky tidbit often overlooked is the Maya use of gnomons, essentially a vertical stick or pole, to track the sun's path by observing the length and direction of its shadow throughout the day. It sounds laughably simple to a modern ear, like something a child would build in the sand, but it's remarkably effective for determining midday or the relative height of the sun. Historians still argue whether Maya astronomers developed and used more complex observational tools beyond these simple sighting devices and shadowcasters. Were there rudimentary forms of lenses or complex reflecting surfaces? The archaeological record is sparse on this, as such delicate items would rarely survive the centuries. But the precision of their calculations, particularly for things like the lunar cycle and predictions of eclipses, suggests either an almost supernatural level of naked-eye observational skill, or perhaps tools whose existence we can only guess at. You, of course, know only what you have: your eyes, your sticks, your building's alignments, and the inherited knowledge of generations. The early morning sun now bathes the observatory in a warm golden light. The mist in the valleys is burning off, revealing the intricate tapestry of the forest and the patchwork of milpas, the small agricultural plots surrounding the city. Your initial observations are complete. The sun has been greeted and its position noted. Now another part of your day begins. The meticulous work of recording, cross-referencing, and preparing for the observations that the coming night will bring. You might hear the distant sounds of the city stirring more fully now, the calls of vendors in the marketplace, the rhythmic thumping of women grinding maize. But up here, in your house of the sun and stars, a different kind of rhythm prevails. One dictated by the silent, celestial clockwork. It's a peaceful existence, mostly. Unless, of course, you spot something unexpected. But that's a worry for later. For now, the sun is up, the day is young, and you have codices to consult. With the sun now climbing steadily higher, casting sharp shadows across the plaza far below, you retreat to a more sheltered part of your observatory. This might be a small, roofed chamber adjoining the main viewing platform, or perhaps a dedicated room built into the structure's lower levels. The intense tropical sun, Section 4, while vital for life and for your solar observations, is not conducive to the delicate work of handling and writing in codices. Here, the direct light of the newly risen sun, while crucial for those initial horizon, the light is softer, more diffuse, filtering in through a strategically placed opening or perhaps supplied by a small smoky checks, quickly becomes too harsh for detailed work on the open platform. You gather your marking tools and move to a more sheltered oil lamp if the chamber is particularly deep. The air is cooler, carrying the faint, dry scent of old paper and pigments, part of the observatory. This might be a covered alcove, a small attached room with high windows designed for diffuse light, or perhaps, before you are your treasures, your true instruments of power, the sacred books. These aren't books in the way even a deeper chamber within the structure's core. Here, the temperature is cooler, the glare is gone, and the silence you might picture them, no leather-bound tomes. These are codices, long strips of bark paper, often from is more profound, broken only by the distant, now slightly muted sounds of the city and the jungle. Your primary task now, the ficus tree, meticulously beaten, smoothed, and coated with a fine layer of white stucco or gesso to create AI, is to transfer your dawn observations into more permanent records and to consult the existing ones. You unroll a section of a perfect writing surface. They are then folded accordion-style, screenfold books that can be spread out to reveal stunning pages of glyphs, numbers, and intricate images. These codices contain the accumulated wisdom of generations of sky watchers. Alman Precious Codex, a book made from the beaten inner bark of a ficus tree, coated with a fine layer of white stucco wax detailing the cycles of Venus, Mars, the Moon, predictions for eclipses, tables for tracking solstices, and ink-like gesso to create a smooth writing surface. These aren't scrolls, but rather long strips folded concertina-style innexes, a veritable library of celestial knowledge. Some of these might be ancient, copied and recopied over centuries. They're screenfold books that can be laid out page by page. They are some of the most valuable objects your society possesses, repositories, pages brittle and bearing the marks of countless reverent hands. Others might be newer, perhaps even ones you are compiling yourself. Of astronomical data, calendrical calculations, divinatory almanacs, and sacred histories, all intertwined. The loss of even one would be a catastrophe. You dip your stylus into the pot of black ink. The glyphs you paint are intricate, beautiful. You unroll one, perhaps the Dresden Codex, or at least what will one day be named that by German librarians, and dense with meaning. Each one is a miniature work of art, but also a precise unit of information, you thousands of miles and hundreds of years away. Its pages are a riot of careful calculations. Bar and dot numerals might be recording the sun's position, the phase of the moon if it was visible, any notable atmospheric phenomena, or and vivid illustrations of gods and celestial events. Here is a section on the cycles of Venus, which your people track heliacal rising of a particular star, its first reappearance in the dawn sky after a period of being obscured by with incredible accuracy, knowing its 584-day synodic period, and its appearances as both morning and evening star. The sun. This detailed record-keeping is a hallmark of Maya science. They weren't just idly stargazing, they were. The mainstream historical fact is that Maya Venus tables are astonishingly precise, sometimes more so than those of their Old World contemporaries. The compiling vast data sets. This fastidious attention to detail is a mainstream historical fact, underpinning their ability to predict celestial events with astonishing. Maya knew that 5 Venus cycles of 584 days very nearly equaled 8 solar years of 365 accuracy. You might compare today's sunrise data with entries from previous years, noting any slight deviations or confirming days, a cornerstone of their calendrical mathematics that allowed for long-term predictions. You trace a line of glyphs with the consistent progression of the solar year. Perhaps you cross-reference it with a table that predicts the visibility of Venus over the coming months. A slender finger, cross-referencing your dawn observations of Venus from the past few days with the predictions laid out here. These codices are your databases, your encyclopedias, your operating manuals. You handle them with immense care. Are its movements aligning with what the ancestors recorded? Any discrepancy, however minor, needs to be noted, studied. Your task, a stray drop of water and careless smear of ink, could obscure vital information. Some of these books are ancient. Past now is to transcribe your own recent observations. You might be updating a running log, adding new data points to a table down through generations of skywatchers, their pages softened and worn at the edges from countless consultations. Their survival, or perhaps making a note of an unusual atmospheric phenomenon, a particularly vivid halo around the moon last night, or the even in part to the modern era is a miracle, considering how many were deliberately destroyed during the Spanish conquest. Unexpected brightness of a meteor. You dip your stylus into the pot of black ink. The glyphs flow from your hand as you work. You might recall teachings from your mentors. Remember how the moon goddess Ixchel presides over weaving with practiced ease a complex dance of lines and symbols, each carrying a wealth of meaning. It's a log in childbirth, but also influences the tides and the monthly cycles. Her movements are as important as the sun god's. Orographic system where symbols can represent whole words or syllables. You're not just an astronomer, you are a highly skilled scribe, one perhaps a mnemonic chant that helps recall the sequence of calculations for predicting a lunar eclipse. The knowledge isn't just data of the elite few who can read and write this sacred script. It's a bit like being a NASA scientist who also, it's woven into mythology, into ritual, into the very fabric of your worldview. One rather quirky or happens to be an expert calligrapher and linguist, all rolled into one. A modern person might try to use a fringe tidbit that some contemporary enthusiasts of Maya culture propose, is that certain geometric patterns found in their art and architecture are actually spreadsheet. You have this beautifully inefficient, incredibly artistic system, and it works. You might be cross-schematic representations of complex astronomical cycles or even constellations, subtly encoded messages for the initiated, looking at the intricate patterns in the referencing data with other astronomical phenomena. For example, historians still argue whether the Maya deliberately correlated certain stucco friezes that adorn some parts of the observatory, or the complex interlace in the codex illuminations. You can warfare campaigns or royal coronations with specific astronomical events, such as the heliacal rising of Venus or planetary conjunctions. The patterns see why someone might think that. Whether it's intentional celestial mapping or simply a highly developed aesthetic sense is, of course, debatable are there in the historical records. But proving direct, consistent intent across all city-states in all periods is a complex debate. For you, the glyphs themselves are the direct language of the sky. Historians still argue whether your codices might hold clues, notations of significant terrestrial events alongside celestial observations. You write down the date. Using Maya had a concept of 0 as a number in the same way we do, or if their completion glyph, often the long count to fix it precisely in time, then the details of what you saw. Maybe you use red ink to shell-shaped, functioned more as a placeholder in their sophisticated vigesimal base 20 number system. This numerical system, by the way, was crucial for their calendrical calculations. Allowing them to track vast spans of time both denote a particularly important observation or to highlight a number that seems to vary from the established patterns. It's slow, meticulous work. There's no undo button if you make a mistake with your ink. Each stroke must into the past and the future. As you make your own notations using dots for ones and bars for fives, you be deliberate, accurate. Your back might ache a little from leaning over the codex. Your eyes might strain in the dim light. Re-employing this elegant system without a second thought. It's as natural to you as breathing. You might note down, but there's a deep satisfaction in this. You are not just passively observing the sky, you are actively engaging with its a long count date, a series of 5 numbers representing the immense cycle of time that began, according to your tradition, in mysteries, translating its silent language into a form that can be understood, preserved, and passed on. A slightly quirky or 3114 BCE. Thinking about that vast expanse can make your head spin a little, like contemplating the number of grains of sand on a distant, unseen beach. It certainly puts your daily to-do list into perspective. Fringe tidbit is the level of detail in some of these astronomical almanacs concerning other planets. While Venus and the Moon were paramount, the Maya also tracked Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, and some scholars believe they may have even had awareness. Your work is slow, meticulous, requiring intense concentration. There are no shortcuts. A single miscalculation, a sloppily drawn of Mercury, though its proximity to the Sun makes it notoriously difficult to observe. Imagine trying to pick out tiny Mercury in glyph. Could lead to errors that compound over time. Imagine the astronomical equivalent of a typo that accidentally shifts a major holiday by the sun's glare without a telescope. It's a testament to incredibly keen eyesight and patience, if they indeed are weak. The priest wouldn't be amused, and the gods, well, who knows? You take a small did. You glance at a section detailing the retrograde motion of Mars. That period when the fiery planet appears to move backwards break, stretching your back, looking out through a narrow observation slit at the now bright sky. Perhaps you nibble on a piece in the sky. Your predecessors painstakingly plotted these apparent wanderings, recognizing them as predictable if complex cycles. Occasionally, another astronomer, perhaps a senior colleague or an assistant, might quietly enter the chamber. There would be a soft exchange of dried fruit or a few roasted pumpkin seeds you brought with you, your ancient astronomer trail mix. Not exactly a coffee of words, a comparison of notes, a discussion about a particular celestial event. The atmosphere is one of focused scholarship, a break with donuts, but it serves the purpose. The ink needs time to dry perfectly before you can fold the cod-shared dedication to understanding the cosmos. You might compare your calculations for the upcoming lunar cycle with theirs, ensuring your predictions 4x page or turn to a new section. You might use this interlude to review calculations made the previous night or the next full moon align. This collaborative aspect, though often unstated in grand historical narratives, is crucial. Knowledge isn't just to prepare charts for the observations planned for the evening. The movements of Mars have been a particular focus recently. It's distinctive hoarded. It's verified, refined, and expanded through collective effort. No lone geniuses working in a vacuum here. Reddish hue, and its sometimes bewildering retrograde motion requiring careful tracking. You might consult an ephemeris, a table showing it's a team sport, albeit a very, very quiet one played out over generations. The hours pass. The sounds predicted positions of celestial objects at regular intervals. Compiling and updating these tables is a significant part of your duties. From the city outside grow louder, the bustle of the marketplace, the shouts of children playing. But here, in your script, this quiet, scholarly part of your day is a stark contrast to the direct sensory engagement of the dawn and night observationsorium. The only sounds are the faint rustle of the bark paper, the occasional scratch of your stylus, but it's equally vital. Without these careful records, without the ability to compare present observations with past ones, the soft murmur of your own voice as you perhaps read a passage aloud to better commit it to memory or to check its cadence patterns of the heavens, would remain a tantalizing but ultimately indecipherable mystery. Your codices are the keys to unlocking that. This is the intellectual heart of your work, where raw observation is transformed into enduring knowledge, one glyph at a time. Your mystery, one glyph, one meticulously recorded observation at a time. The rustle of the bark paper as you carefully turn a page's neck is definitely starting to stiffen up. Maybe time for a quick stretch before the midday heat truly sets in. The sun has now arced high into the sky, approaching its zenith. Even in the shaded parts of the observatory, a certain languid heat begins to permeate the stone, and the air outside shimmers above the plaza. The frantic energy of the morning market has likely subsided, replaced by a more subdued rhythm as people seek shelter from the midday intensity. For you, too, this marks a natural pause in your duties, a time for simple sustenance and quiet contemplation before the preparations for the night's observations begin. It's not exactly a scheduled lunch break with a canteen, it's more an intuitive response to the day's peak. You carefully roll up your codices, tying them with cotton cords and stowing them in a dry, protected niche or perhaps a carved wooden chest. They are too precious to leave exposed. Your simple meal is unlikely to be elaborate. Perhaps you have a few the ubiquitous maize tortillas that you brought with you. They might be a bit dry by now, but they are filling. You might have a small clay pot containing a stew of beans and squash, kept warmish by the ambient heat, or maybe some ground sickle paca, a roasted pumpkin seed dip, to spread on your tortillas. Think of it as the ancient Maya equivalent of a desk lunch, functional, portable, and not requiring a cordon bleu chef. It's a far cry from the feasts you know the nobility and priests enjoy in their palaces, with roasted turkey, deer, and an abundance of chocolate. But your work requires a clear head, not a full belly that might lead to drowsiness. You eat slowly, deliberately, your thoughts perhaps still lingering on the star charts and calculations from the morning. You might take your meal on a shaded part of the observatory platform, overlooking the city and the surrounding landscape. From this vantage point, the world unfolds below, the bright green of the maize fields, the darker green of the jungle, the flashes of color from macaw feathers on a noble's headdress as they cross the plaza. It's a moment of detached observation, not of the stars, but of the human world you serve. You are part of this society, yet also slightly apart. Your concerns often directed upwards while theirs are rooted in the earth. The midday quiet of the observatory is profound. The insects have changed their tune. The constant buzzing of bees and flies replaces the morning's bird chorus. The cicadas might be starting their piercing high-pitched drone, a sound that seems to amplify the heat. You might hear the distant thump, thump, thump of someone tamping earth for a new construction, or the faint shouts of children playing a ball game in a neighborhood court, echoes of the daily life from which your specialized role somewhat insulates you. Historians still argue whether Maya astronomers were also priests, or if they formed a distinct class of scholars. The line was likely blurred, with astronomical knowledge deeply interwoven with religious ritual and prophecy. You certainly perform rituals, make offerings, and understand the divine significance of the celestial bodies, but your primary focus is the how and when of their movements, not just the why in a purely theological sense. This period of midday repose is not idleness. It's a time for mental digestion, for letting the morning's complex calculations settle. You might ponder a discrepancy you found in an old almanac, or mentally rehearse the sequence of observations you'll need to make after sunset for tracking the planet Jupiter. The mainstream historical fact is that Maya mathematics, including their sophisticated understanding of place value notation and the concept of zero, or completion, was foundational to their astronomical achievements. Without it, the complex calendrical corrections and planetary predictions would have been impossible. Your quiet mental review is a continuation of that mathematical tradition. Sometimes a bit of unexpected wildlife provides a distraction. A brilliantly colored trogon might land on a nearby wall, its iridescent plumage flashing in the sun before it flits away. Or a family of spider monkeys might pass through the treetops visible from your perch, their acrobatic movements a source of fleeting amusement. Remember that coatimundi you heard earlier? Maybe it's bolder now, sniffing around the lower levels of the observatory for scraps. The jungle is never far away. Its presence is a constant reminder of the wild, untamed world that surrounds your ordered city. A quirky or fringe tidbit is the speculation by some that Maya astronomers might have used reflective surfaces, like polished obsidian mirrors, or even still water in stone basins, as tools to observe the sun indirectly or to view reflections of stars without craning their necks upwards all night. While direct archaeological evidence for widespread use of large astronomical mirrors is thin, the Maya were certainly masters of polishing stone. Imagine trying to get a perfectly flat, highly reflective surface from a chunk of volcanic glass with just stone tools and abrasives. That's dedication, if they did it. You, however, rely on the tried and true method of casting shadows and direct, careful glances. You might take a short nap during the hottest part of the day. A brief period of rest can sharpen your senses for the long night ahead. Curled up on a woven mat in the shadiest, coolest corner you can find, you drift off, the hum of the jungle a soothing white noise. It's not the deep sleep of true night, but a lighter doze, from which you'll awaken with a renewed sense of purpose. There's no alarm clock to rouse you, just your internal sense of the sun's passage and the subtle cues of the environment. The changing angle of the shadows, a slight shift in the insect chorus. This quiet interlude, this simple meal and period of rest, is as much a part of your routine as the stargazing itself. It's a necessary recharge. The life of an astronomer here isn't one of constant, frantic activity. It's a life of intense focus, punctuated by periods of quiet patience, observation, and then more patience. You're playing the long game, tracking cycles that unfold over days, months, years, even centuries. Rushing is counterproductive, so you sit, you eat, you rest. You observe the world from your quiet perch, feeling the pulse of the city below and the vaster, slower pulse of the cosmos above. The sun continues its inexorable journey across the sky, and soon it will be time to prepare for its departure and the arrival of your true domain, the night. As the midday heat begins to wane and the shadows cast by the observatory start to lengthen noticeably, a different kind of activity might commence. You are not merely a solitary scholar hoarding your celestial knowledge. Part of your responsibility, your legacy, is to pass it on. It's time for guiding novices, the young apprentices who have been chosen, or perhaps have shown a particular aptitude, for the demanding path of an astronomer scribe. They arrive, perhaps 2 or 3 of them, their youthful energy a contrast to your own more measured demeanor. They might be sons of nobles or children who displayed exceptional mathematical or observational skills. Their initial training would have involved the basics of the calendar, the numeral system, and the sacred stories of the cosmos. Now, under your tutelage, they are learning the practical arts of skywatching. You greet them with a nod, perhaps a quiet word. There's no formal classroom, no whiteboard. The observatory itself is your teaching tool, the sky your textbook. Your first task might be to review their previous night's work. Did they accurately note the rising time of a particular constellation? Were their drawings of the moon's phase precise? You examine their practice sheets, perhaps smoothed clay tablets on which they can scribe and then easily erase, or less precious pieces of bark paper. Your corrections are gentle but firm. Precision is paramount. A wobbly line in a glyph, a miscounted day in a lunar cycle. These are not trivial errors. No kin, you might say, pointing to a slightly misshapen symbol for Venus. The tail is too short. It could be mistaken for the glyph for frog. And we are tracking planets, not amphibians, however fascinating their nocturnal calls might be. That's your little attempt at astronomer humor. They probably just stare blankly. Tough crowd? You might take them to one of the specific alignment points within the observatory, demonstrating how a notch in a wall, when viewed from a precise spot, will frame a certain star or planetary rising at a particular time of year. Watch, you'll say. As the sun sets today, its last light will illuminate this carving, but only for a few days. Soon it will move and this marker will fall dark until next year. This is how we confirm the turning of the seasons. You are teaching them to read the language of light and shadow, a skill honed over generations. This meticulous use of architecture for astronomical alignment is a well-documented mainstream historical fact of Maya civilization. Structures like the governor's palace at Uxmal, with its Venus-aligned doorways, are testament to this sophisticated practice. Perhaps you set them a task to measure the length of a shadow cast by a specific gnomon at set intervals and to plot its change. Or you might have them practice identifying constellations, not just as patterns of stars, but as the celestial embodiments of gods and mythological beasts. That cluster, you might explain, pointing to what modern observers call the Pleiades, is the rattle of the rattlesnake Tsab. Its appearance marks the time for planting maize. This intertwining of practical astronomy with deep cultural mythology is essential. They are not just learning science. They are learning the sacred order of the universe. Historians still argue whether the transmission of this highly specialized knowledge was primarily oral, passed down through memorized verses and direct instruction, or if there were more formalized textbooks or training manuals beyond the sacred codices themselves. Given the complexity of the calculations and the vast amount of data, it's likely a combination of both. You might recite long passages from a codex, explaining the meaning of each glyph, each numerical sequence, while they try to copy the forms onto their tablets. One quirky or fringe tidbit related to ancient education is the occasional discovery of what appear to be practice slates or potsherds covered in what looks like a student's clumsy attempts at writing glyphs. It's a humanizing touch, a reminder that even the most revered scribe or astronomer started somewhere, probably making a lot of mistakes that would make their future selves cringe. You remember your own early fumbles, the patient and sometimes not so patient corrections of your own mentors. You try to channel the more patient ones. Patience is indeed the key virtue you try to instill. Observing the heavens is not for the restless or the easily bored. It requires long hours of stillness, of careful watching, often with very little apparent change from one moment to the next. You might set an apprentice to watch a particular section of the sky and note down every star that becomes visible as twilight deepens, teaching them to differentiate between stars, planets, the wanderers, and transient phenomena like meteors. You encourage them to use their whole bodies as an instrument, to note directions by the feel of the prevailing wind, to gauge angles by holding their hands and fingers at arm's length. Ancient techniques still surprisingly effective. The sky does not rush, you tell them, and neither should you. Another gem of wisdom probably lost on them as they fidget, likely wishing they were down in the city playing pits, the intense ritual ball game. Ah, youth, you might show them how to prepare ink, grinding the soot or hematite with a stone muller, carefully adding the binder, or how to properly prepare a surface for writing, stretching and smoothing the bark paper. These are practical skills essential for their future work. You observe them closely. Who has the steadiest hand? Who has the sharpest eye? Who grasps the mathematical concepts most quickly? These observations will inform who gets assigned which specialized tasks later in their training. As the afternoon wears on, and the sun dips lower towards the western horizon, the lessons shift from reviewing past work and theory to preparing for the night's observations. You might assign them specific tasks for the coming darkness. One, to track the moon's path across a set of predetermined markers. Another, to watch for the heliacal rising of a specific star. This hands-on experience under your watchful eye is invaluable. You are not just imparting facts. You are cultivating a way of seeing, a way of thinking, a deep reverence for the cosmic order. And in doing so, you are ensuring that the chain of knowledge, stretching back into the mists of time, will continue unbroken long after your own eyes have ceased to watch the stars. The sun is now noticeably descending, its light softening from the harsh white of midday to a warmer golden hue. The shadows cast by the observatory stretch long and sharp across the platform, and a gentle breeze, the harbinger of evening, might begin to stir. The city below seems to glow in the late afternoon light. For you and your apprentices, this signals a shift in gears. The theoretical lessons and codex consultations of the day give way to the practical preparations for the night's vigil. It's time to check your tools and ensure all necessary alignments are ready for the crucial hours of darkness. You conduct a meticulous inventory of your observational equipment. It's not a vast collection by modern standards, but each item is essential. There are your crossed sighting sticks, perhaps several pairs of different lengths for varying degrees of precision or for specific astronomical targets. You check that they are straight, unwarped, and that the central binding that holds them together is secure. A wobbly sight stick is a recipe for inaccurate readings. You might have a simple plumb line, a cord with a weight, perhaps a small polished stone, at the end. This helps you establish a true vertical, crucial for certain types of alignments, and for ensuring the levelness of any temporary markers you might place. Its simplicity belies its importance. Getting a perfect vertical by eye is harder than it looks, especially in fading light. Then there are the items for recording. Freshly mixed ink, both black and red, in their small pottery or shell containers. You check the consistency, not too thick, not too watery. A supply of sharpened styluses made from bone, hardened wood, or perhaps even obsidian splinters for the finest lines. You might also have a small store of blank bark paper sheets or prepared animal skins, ready for any unexpected observations that require immediate, detailed notation beyond the quick jottings on a temporary slate. You also have your small oil lamps ready, pottery bowls with a simple fiber wick, fueled by animal fat or perhaps oil from certain tree nuts. While you prefer to observe in complete darkness to allow your eyes to fully adapt, sometimes a faint, carefully shielded light is necessary for making notes or consulting a chart. You make sure the wicks are trimmed and the fuel levels are adequate. Running out of lamp oil mid-observation of a crucial lunar eclipse phase would be, to put it mildly, inconvenient. That's the kind of problem you just don't need at 3 a.m. when you're trying to figure out if that shadow is moving faster than predicted. Historians still argue whether the Maya used any form of rudimentary water clock or other timekeeping devices for night observations beyond the stars themselves. While their calendar was incredibly precise for long-term tracking, marking shorter intervals within a single night without direct solar cues presents a challenge. Perhaps specific sequences of stars rising or culminating served as nocturnal hour markers. Or maybe it was just really good instinct honed by years of practice. For now, you rely on the sky's own clockwork, the predictable procession of constellations. The alignment features built into the observatory itself are your primary instruments. You recheck key sightlines, that narrow window that perfectly frames the setting point of Venus at this time of year. Is it clear of any new spiderwebs or debris? That stone pillar whose shadow, cast by the moon at its highest point, should fall on a specific glyph carved into the floor. Are both elements unobstructed? You might instruct your apprentices to gently sweep clean certain observation points, or to ensure that movable markers, if any, are precisely positioned. This is all part of the pre-flight check, Ancient Astronomer edition. It's not as complex as a NASA countdown, but the principle of ensuring everything is go is exactly the same. One mainstream historical fact that always comes to mind during these preparations is the sheer dedication to long-term observation. Maya astronomical records, like those detailed in the Dresden Codex for Venus, cover centuries of observations. This wasn't just a casual hobby, it was a sustained institutional effort, which implies established procedures, training, and a systematic approach to checking and maintaining their instruments, however simple. Your careful checks are part of that tradition. A quirky or fringe tidbit concerns the acoustic properties of some Maya sites. Certain plazas or ball courts, and perhaps even some observatory platforms, seem to have unusual sound reflection or amplification qualities. While probably not primarily designed for astronomical purposes, some speculate that an astronomer calling out an observation to a scribe positioned at a distance might have benefited from these architectural quirks. You usually just rely on speaking clearly or, for very detailed notes, having the scribe close by, squinting in the lamplight. You can imagine the chaos. Did you say the moon just passed behind the great ceiba tree, or was it that the great jaguar spirit is the moon? Clarity is key. Your apprentices might be tasked with setting up temporary markers if needed for a specific observation that night. Perhaps a series of small stones along a western sightline to track the exact setting point of a planet over several hours. You guide their placement, ensuring they understand the geometry involved. They are learning that astronomy is a science of angles, of careful measurement, and of patience. The preparation is as important as the observation itself. Rushing now means flawed data later. As the sun gets ever closer to the horizon, the quality of light changes dramatically. The colors become richer, the shadows deeper and more defined. This is a crucial time for a final check of western horizon alignments, those markers that the setting sun, or later the setting moon or planets, will interact with. You want your eyes to begin adapting to the diminishing light. This means avoiding bright lights and allowing your pupils to gradually dilate, so the oil lamps remain unlit for as long as possible. The sounds of the city begin to soften as well. The day's work winds down for many. Evening meals are being prepared. The air carries the scent of wood smoke from countless hearths. But for you, the workday is really just beginning. Your mind is focused on the celestial actors about to take the stage. You feel a familiar sense of anticipation, the quiet thrill that comes with knowing you are about to witness the unfolding of cosmic patterns. Your tools are ready. Your alignment points are clear. Your apprentices are, mostly, paying attention. The great celestial theater is about to open for its nightly performance, and you and your forebears and your students have the best seats in the house. The sun finally kisses the horizon, a fiery farewell painting the western sky in spectacular hues of orange, red, and deep purple. The forest canopy, moments ago a vibrant green, transforms into a dark, undulating silhouette against the blaze. This period, the twilight, is a magical, transitional time. It's when the day creatures seek their rest and the nocturnal world begins to stir, both in the jungle below and in the vast expanse above. For you, it's a moment of keen anticipation, particularly for the appearance of one specific celestial body, Venus. Your gaze is fixed on a particular point in the western sky, slightly above where the sun has just vanished. This is where she will appear, Noek, the great star, or Chakek, the red star, though sometimes also referred to as Sashek, the white star, depending on atmospheric conditions, or perhaps her phase. Venus, as an evening star, is often the very first star to become visible after sunset, her brilliance outshining all others except the moon. Watching for her appearance is a critical daily observation. It's not just about admiring her beauty, it's about timing. How long after sunset does she appear? How high above the horizon? Her precise behavior is a key component of the intricate Venus tables recorded in your codices. You think back to your codex consultations from earlier, reviewing the predictions for her current cycle. The apprentices are beside you, their young eyes also scanning the deepening twilight. You've instructed them where to look, reminded them of Venus's steady, unwavering light, so different from the twinkling of true stars. She does not hurry, you might have told them earlier, echoing your previous sentiment about the sky. But when she arrives, she commands attention. They are likely fidgeting as usual. Maybe one of them thinks he sees it, points excitedly, only for you to gently correct him. No, son, that is but a high-flying vulture catching the last rays. Patience. A good astronomer learns to distinguish celestial light from, well, bird glints. As the last colors of sunset fade and the sky deepens to indigo, a hush seems to fall over the world. Then, there she is, a tiny, incredibly bright pinprick of light, materializing as if by magic in the exact spot you anticipated. It's a moment of quiet satisfaction, a small affirmation of the order and predictability of the cosmos. Your ancestors correctly mapped her movements, and through your continued observations, that knowledge remains alive and accurate. This consistent, precise tracking of Venus is a cornerstone of Maya astronomy, a solid mainstream historical fact. Their Venus almanac in the Dresden Codex, for example, is so accurate it corrects for the true length of the Venusian synodic period, about 583.92 days, over long stretches of time, a feat that required centuries of meticulous observation. You might note the exact time of her appearance, perhaps relative to how dark the sky has become or the visibility of certain landscape features. You'd also carefully observe her brightness and any perceived color. Atmospheric dust, haze from distant fires, or high thin clouds can all affect her appearance. These subtle details are important, as they might be interpreted as omens, or simply as data points for understanding atmospheric conditions. Historians still argue whether the Maya attached specific dire or auspicious meanings to subtle variations in Venus's brightness or color beyond her general associations with warfare and royalty. The glyphs accompanying Venus in the codices often depict darts or spears, suggesting a martial connection, but the nuance of daily interpretation remains a subject of scholarly exploration. With Venus now shining brightly, a solitary beacon in the fading light, your attention might turn to other parts of the sky. The first true stars are beginning to prick the darkness. You identify familiar constellations as they emerge, testing your apprentices. Which asterism is that, rising in the east, and what story does it tell? The sky is not just a collection of abstract data points. It is a rich tapestry of mythology, with every star group, every planet, having its own story, its own divine associations. Remember the Pleiades being the rattlesnake's rattle? That's just one of many. One quirky or fringe tidbit associated with Venus observations is the idea, promoted by some more esoteric interpretations, that Maya priests could somehow harness the energy of Venus during its heliacal risings for specific rituals. While the planet's appearances were undoubtedly of immense ritual importance, particularly its heliacal rise as morning star, which was often linked to the initiation of warfare, the concept of harnessing energy in a New Age sense is likely a modern projection. For you, the power of Venus lies in its predictability and its role as a divine marker, not in some mystical energy field. You'd probably be more concerned about a cloud bank rolling in and obscuring your view than about capturing its cosmic vibes. If only you had some of that crocodile dung sunscreen you vaguely remembered being a thing for some cultures. Though for the sun, not for keeping Venus's vibes off you. No, wait, that was Egyptian. Never mind. The point is, you focus on the observable. As full darkness approaches, the observatory platform becomes a hushed, focused space. The oil lamps, if needed at all, are kept very low and shielded to preserve night vision. Your eyes, now fully adapted, can pick out fainter and fainter stars. The Milky Way, the Waka Chan or Sak Bay, White Road, begins to stretch across the heavens, a magnificent hazy river of light. It's a sight that never fails to inspire awe, even after years of nightly observation. You continue to monitor Venus as it slowly descends towards the western horizon, tracking its path against background stars or horizon markers. Your apprentices take turns making these observations, guided by your quiet instructions. Every so often, one of them gets distracted by a firefly blinking nearby, mistaking it for a new star. "No, Ikal," you sigh internally. "That's just nature's tiny, inconsistent lantern. Focus." It's a long night ahead, and Venus is just the opening act. Her regal appearance signals that the celestial stage is set, the audience is attentive, and the grand, silent drama of the cosmos is well and truly underway. The transition from day to night is complete, and you are in your element, a navigator on the celestial ocean. With Venus having made her grand entrance and now beginning her slow descent, the sky truly belongs to the stars. The initial flurry of activity surrounding her appearance gives way to the long, patient rhythm of the midnight vigil. This is where the real endurance test begins, a period of quiet, sustained observation that will stretch for many hours, punctuated only by the meticulous recording of data and the occasional whispered consultation with an apprentice or colleague. The jungle sounds, which seem to recede during the vibrant colors of twilight, now reassert themselves, a constant, living chorus of clicks, chirps, croaks, and the occasional rustle or snap of a twig from the darkness beyond your stone platform. Your primary task throughout these deep night hours is the patient tracking of constellations and, if visible, other planets like Mars, Jupiter, or Saturn. You're not just casually identifying them. You're noting their precise rising times, their culmination, the moment they reach their highest point in the sky, and their setting times. You observe their positions relative to one another and to fixed horizon markers. This information, gathered night after night, year after year, is crucial for refining the calendar, for understanding the complex motions of the planets, including their mysterious retrograde phases, and for recognizing the celestial patterns that signal important seasonal transitions or possess divinatory significance. You might be focusing on a specific constellation group, perhaps the one modern astronomers call Orion. To you, it might be a celestial turtle, or part of a great cosmic hunter or ball player, its belt stars particularly prominent. You watch it slowly wheel across the sky, an hour marker in the grand celestial clock. Or your attention might be on the apparent movement of Mars. Its reddish hue makes it distinctive, but its path among the fixed stars can be puzzling to the untrained eye, sometimes appearing to slow down, stop, and even move backward before resuming its forward motion. This retrograde motion was a significant puzzle for ancient astronomers worldwide, and the Maya were no exception in their careful attempts to chart and predict it. The mainstream historical fact here is the Maya's impressive ability to calculate the synodic periods of planets like Mars and Jupiter, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of their apparent movements against the backdrop of the stars. The observatory is designed for this kind of prolonged work. There are likely specific, carefully chosen vantage points, perhaps marked stones or notches, that align with the rising or setting points of important star groups at different times of the year. You move between these points as needed, your movements slow and deliberate in the darkness. Your apprentices might be stationed at different points, each assigned to watch a particular sector of the sky or a specific celestial body. You circulate among them, checking their observations, offering guidance, ensuring their focus doesn't waver. It's easy for attention to drift during the long, quiet hours, especially for the younger ones. You can almost hear the mental strain as they try to differentiate between an actual celestial object and a particularly persistent gnat buzzing around their head. Historians still argue whether the Maya systematically named and cataloged individual stars beyond those forming prominent asterisms, or if their focus was more on the larger constellation patterns and planetary movements. While their surviving codices and inscriptions clearly depict constellations and planetary cycles, a comprehensive star catalog comparable to those of, say, Ptolemy has not been found. It's possible such knowledge was transmitted orally or recorded in codices that haven't survived. You certainly know many individual stars by sight, their brightness and color familiar companions, but your primary framework is the larger dance of the constellations and the wandering stars, the planets. A quirky or fringe tidbit often discussed is the Maya concept of dark constellations, not patterns made of stars, but shapes perceived in the dark rifts and dust lanes of the Milky Way. For example, areas that appear as voids in the luminous band of the Milky Way might be seen as a celestial tapir, a serpent, or other significant creatures. This is a different way of seeing the sky, focusing on the absence of light rather than its presence. As the Milky Way arches overhead in all its glory, you might indeed point out these shadowy figures to your apprentices, another layer of meaning woven into the cosmic tapestry. You find yourself tracing the outline of the llama in the sky, as some cultures far to the south apparently call a particular dark patch. Or maybe that's just a rumor you heard from a traveling merchant. The point is, the sky is full of stories, both bright and dark. Maintaining focus for hours on end is a skill. Your body is accustomed to it, but it's still a discipline. You might chew on a piece of dried agave leaf to keep yourself alert, or simply shift your weight, stretch your neck, anything to combat the encroaching weariness. The air grows cooler as the night deepens, and you might pull your mantle tighter around your shoulders. The stone beneath you feels cold, even on the warmest nights. Occasionally, a meteor streaks across the sky, a fleeting trail of light. You and any apprentices who happen to be looking in the right direction would note its path, its brightness, its color. These star droppings are often seen as omens, their significance interpreted based on their characteristics and the celestial context in which they appear. A particularly bright one might even cause a bit of a stir, breaking the monotony for a moment. Did you see that one? Right through the turtle's shell. What could that mean? Good luck sleeping after that kind of celestial punctuation mark. The passage of time is marked by the slow, majestic procession of the stars. There are no clocks chiming the hours here. Instead, it's the serpent's head has now cleared the eastern ridge, or the celestial maze god is now at his zenith. It's a more organic, more connected way of experiencing time, deeply attuned to the rhythms of the cosmos. Your apprentices are learning this language, this cadence. They learn to feel the turning of the earth beneath them, mirrored in the grand sweep of the heavens above. It's a profound, almost meditative state. This extended communion with the night sky. You are a tiny, sentient speck on a spinning planet, looking out at an immeasurable vastness, yet finding order, pattern, and meaning in its silent, shimmering depths. The city below is asleep, unaware of the cosmic ballet unfolding above. But you are awake. You are watching. You are recording. It is your sacred duty, your quiet passion. As the midnight hours deepen and the constellations continue their grand, silent march across the inky canvas, your observations become intrinsically interwoven with the rich tapestry of Maya mythology. You are not just plotting points of light, you are witnessing the celestial reenactment of sacred stories, the movements of gods and heroes, the cosmic underpinnings of your entire worldview. Each star group, each planet, carries with it a lineage of meaning, a narrative *** section 1 that connects the heavens to the earth, the divine to the mundane. When you observe the pair of stars that modern astronomers know 0***, as the hours of the midnight vigil continue their slow march, as Castor and Pollux in the constellation Gemini, you might see them as the hero twins, Hunahpu, and mere tracking of celestial bodies, their rising, settings, and transits, becomes interwoven with a richer, deeper layer of Exbalanque. Their adventures detailed in the sacred Popol Vuh, though you wouldn't call understanding. The stories and mythologies that give these luminous points their profound cultural meaning. You are not just observing abstract geometrical at that, of course. For you, it's simply one of the vital creation stories, are legendary. You recall progressions. You are witnessing the nightly reenactment of divine dramas, the movements of gods, heroes, and sacred animals across the great, their descent into Xibalba, the underworld, their clever defeat of the lords of death through a series of trials in dark canopy. Sharing and reflecting on these narratives is as much a part of your work as the precise measurement of an azimuth, a climactic ball game, and their eventual resurrection and ascension into the sky as the sun and moon, or, in other tellings, as these prominent stars. As you note their position, you are reminded of their courage, their trickery, You might gather your apprentices in a relatively sheltered spot on the platform, perhaps during a lull when no immediate critical observation needs divine power. It's a far cry from simply logging coordinates for Alpha Geminorum. The Milky Way itself minute-by-minute attention. The oil lamps cast flickering shadows, creating an intimate, focused atmosphere, though you prefer to keep them. The Great Sakbe, or White Road, is often envisioned as the path the souls of the dead travel to the underworld, dim to preserve night vision. Look there, you'd say, pointing toward a familiar pattern of stars. Or as the celestial canoe paddled by the maze god. Its orientation changes throughout the night and through the seasons. And do you see the great ball player Hunahpu preparing his shot? His opponent, a lord of Xibalba, the underworld, lurks in that dark patch just beyond. The constellation that modern eyes might see as Gemini or Auriga transforms these shifts are imbued with significance. When it stretches from north to south, perhaps it represents the world tree, the W under your guidance, into figures from the Popol Vuh, the sacred creation epic. This isn't just storytelling for Akachan, whose roots are in Xibalba and whose branches reach into the heavens, connecting all realms. It's majestic entertainment. It's a mnemonic device, a way of embedding complex astronomical knowledge within memorable narratives. Making it easier to sweep across the zenith on a clear, moonless night is breathtaking, and you might take a moment just to absorb its recall the positions and significance of various star groups. The celestial sphere becomes a living codex, its stories read night after grandeur, reminding your apprentices of its sacred importance beyond its constituent stars. You remember an elder astronomer once chuckling that the asterisk night, the Milky Way itself, the shimmering Waka-chan, sixth sky or raised sky, or Sakbe, was also where the cosmic sky turtle laid its star eggs. Probably a joke, but it made Sakbe asterisk White Road is central to many of these narratives. It can represent the cosmic monster, Itzum Kab. You look at the denser patches differently. A mainstream historical fact is the profound connection between Maya astronomy and their cosmology. The movement's Ain, the crocodilian earth from whose back the world tree grows, connecting the terrestrial realm with the celestial, or of celestial bodies were not seen as mere physical phenomena, but as the actions of deities and supernatural forces directly influencing human affairs, and it can be the path a god takes, or the canoe carrying the maze god to his place of rebirth. Historians still argue the natural world. Therefore, an astronomer was also, in a sense, a reader of divine will, a decipherer of celestial weather. The precise interpretation of the Milky Way's symbolism was uniform across all Maya city-states and time periods, or portents. Your meticulous tracking provides the raw data for the priests and diviners who interpret these celestial events. When you track the slow, looping path of Mars, the fiery wanderer, you might associate it with gods of war if regional variations and evolving beliefs led to a diversity of meanings. Given the vastness of the Maya world, local interpretations likely abounded, all while sharing a common cosmological framework. A key mainstream historical fact is the deep association of planets or sacrifice. Its distinctive reddish hue naturally lends itself to such connections. Its retrograde motion, that baffling backward dance, could be seen as with specific deities. Venus, as you know, is linked with gods like Kukulkan, feathered serpent, a period of celestial uncertainty, a time when the god is re-evaluating his path or perhaps engaging in a celestial battle. The glyphs associated with Mars in the codices sometimes feature iconography of conflict or decapitation, reinforcing these mythological or Lahunchan, 10 sky, and often carries martial or sacrificial connotations. Mars, with its reddish hue, might be Lynx. You watch its slow arc and ponder what cosmic drama it's currently engaged in, high above the sleeping city associated with jaguar gods or other deities of fire and conflict. Jupiter, slower moving and majestic, could be tied to royal. Historians still argue whether specific Maya deities were exclusively associated with single celestial bodies, or if a deity power or important creator deities. When you track these wandering stars, you are also tracking the journeys and influences of these divine beings as manifestation could encompass multiple phenomena. For example, was Kainich Ahau solely the sun god, or could an unusual planetary conjunction where two or more planets appear very close together in the sky, wouldn't just be his influence also be seen in bright stars or even Venus at certain times? The Maya pantheon is complex. With gods an interesting astronomical event, it would be a potent divine summit meeting, rich with portent and requiring careful interpretation, perhaps you often having multiple aspects and overlapping domains. Your focus is on the movement and timing, but you are always aware of recall a time when Jupiter and Saturn appeared to nearly touch. The elders spoke of it as a great council of the sky gods, the divine personalities you are tracking. You might silently utter a prayer or a sign of respect to the celestial being you are observing, portending significant changes in the world below. It probably just meant a lot of extra paperwork for you, noting it all down. A small personal acknowledgement of its power. A quirky or fringe tidbit is the theory that some of the complex one quirky or fringe tidbit, often arising from New Age interpretations rather than strict archaeology, is the idea that specific Maya iconography on Maya stelae, carved stone monuments, or temple facades which often depict rulers adorned in elaborate costumes interacting temple orientations, were designed to channel cosmic energies from particular constellations or planets during specific alignments. While temple alignments, too, with supernatural beings, might actually be allegorical representations of astronomical events. A ruler shown holding a Kawil celestial events are undeniable, like the equinox alignment at Chichen Itza's El Castillo. The notion of them as ancient energy collectors is more speculative. For you, the power is in the knowledge, the timing, the ability to predict scepter, a mannequin figure often with a smoking celt in its forehead, while facing a feathered serpent, for example, might symbolically represent a planetary conjunction or an eclipse occurring during his reign, thus legitimizing his power through association and interpret, rather than in some unseen vibrational force. Still, as you look at the twin stars of Castor and Pollux with cosmic order, you've seen these carvings. The connection seems plausible. If difficult to definitively prove for every instance, you can't help but feel a certain something. Maybe it's just the late hour and too little. It makes you wonder if your own observations today will one day be memorialized in stone, a cryptic image for future sleep. You might tell your apprentices about the moon goddess, Ixchel, and her various manifestations. Sometimes she is a generations to decode. Hopefully they get your good side. Even the moon, Ixchel or Ix, a young, fertile woman, patroness of weaving and childbirth, her waxing phase full of promise. Other times she is a powerful goddess, associated with weaving, childbirth, medicine, and sometimes destruction through floods. Her phases are carefully tracked an old crone pouring a jug of destructive water upon the earth associated with storms and the waning moon. Her not just for calendrical purposes, but because her changing form and position are rich with mythological import. The new moon crescent cycle is carefully tracked, not just for calendrical purposes, but because her phase and position are thought to influence earthly affairs, might be her canoe, reborn after her monthly journey through the underworld. The full moon, her face radiant and complete. Anne. See how she sails tonight, almost full, riding in her canoe of stars, you might say. A eclipse of the moon could be seen as the moon goddess being devoured by a celestial jaguar or serpent, a terrifying event requiring good omen for the harvests, perhaps. Then again, maybe not. Best to check the almanac in the morning. The rituals to ensure her return. You would carefully note the precise timing of each phase. Knowing this data is vital for everything. Stories also serve to explain celestial phenomena. Why does the sun disappear each night? It is undertaking a perilous journey through X, from agricultural cycles to the scheduling of important ceremonies. As you share these stories and connections with your apprentices, you are doing Ibalba, the underworld, battling monsters and lords of death, only to be reborn, triumphant, in the east each morning. And more than just passing on astronomical data, you are inculcating them into a worldview where science and spirit are inseparable. The eclipse? That's when a great sky serpent or jaguar attempts to devour the sun or moon. A terrifying event that requires patterns you observe are not cold, sterile mathematics. They are the vibrant, living narratives of the cosmos. This understanding rituals and noise-making to scare the celestial beast away. You, of course, understand the predictable mechanics of eclipses, uses your work with a profound sense of meaning and purpose. It's what keeps you standing vigil through the long cold thanks to the intricate tables in your codices, like those in the Dresden Codex, which can predict them with remarkable accuracy. Nights, year after year. You are not just a timekeeper, you are a story keeper, a guardian of the sacred. But the mythological explanation exists alongside the scientific one, enriching it, giving it a deeper cultural resonance. It's like narratives written in starlight. And as another constellation clears the eastern horizon, a new chapter in that ever-unfolding celestial saga begins. While most of your nights are characterized by the predictable, almost stately procession of familiar stars and planets, there are occasions when the heavens decide to throw a curveball, a celestial surprise that shatters the routine and demands immediate, heightened attention. These are the moments when comets blaze into view, unexpected meteors create Section 1 dazzling light shows, or most dramatically when an eclipse darkens the sun or moon. These events are not just scientifically won. While most of your nights are characterized by the patient, predictable tracking of familiar celestial bodies, there are times when the sky throws a surprise your way, an unexpected visitor, a sudden dramatic event. Interesting, they are often seen as potent omens, messages from the gods, and your role in observing, recording, and helping to interpret them is paramount. Imagine it's a typical, quiet night. You and your apprentices are methodically tracking. These are the moments that can cause a flurry of activity in the otherwise calm routine of the observatory. Moments that test your skills. The movement of Jupiter across a star field. Suddenly, one of the younger apprentices, perhaps the one who usually struggles to your knowledge, and sometimes your nerve, responding to comets, meteors, or eclipses, even predicted stay awake, lets out a startled gasp and points. "Master, look!" His voice is tight with a mixture of fear ones, requires a different kind of focus, an ability to react quickly and record meticulously under pressure, perhaps on a clear and awe. Following his shaking finger, you see it. A new star, one that wasn't there last night, moonless night, as you are patiently explaining the movement of Saturn to a slightly sleepy apprentice. A brilliant meteor streaks across the sky, or even an hour ago. It has a fuzzy, elongated appearance and perhaps a faint tail like a celestial feather. Not one of the faint, fleeting star droppings you see occasionally, but a true fireball blazing brighter is just becoming discernible. A comet. The quiet, focused atmosphere of the observatory instantly electrifies. Comets, then Venus, casting fleeting shadows on the observatory platform. It might leave a luminous train behind it, a ghostly ribbon that the smoking stars, as they are sometimes called, are rare and often deeply unsettling visitors. They don't follow hangs in the air for precious seconds before fading. Instantly, the sleepy apprentice is wide awake. You, too, feel the predictable paths of the planets. They appear seemingly from nowhere, grow in brightness and tail length, and then slowly fade away. A surge of adrenaline. Your first instinct is to note its trajectory. Where did it start? Where did it end? Which their origins and destinations a mystery. Your first act is to verify the observation, of course. Is it truly a comet? Constellations did it pass through? What was its color? A fiery orange, a brilliant white, or perhaps an eerie green or just an unusual cloud formation? Or perhaps the smoke from a distant, unseen fire catching the starlight? But no. This? Did it break into smaller pieces? Was there any sound, a hiss, a rumble, a sonic boom that reached object as clearly celestial, moving slowly against the background stars? You take a deep breath. This night just got a lot you seconds later. These observations are critical. Such a spectacular meteor, a Bach-Eck, bone more complicated and a lot more significant. You immediately set about observing its precise position, sketching its appearance. Noting star, perhaps, would be considered a powerful omen. The priests and the Ahau himself would need a full its brightness relative to known stars, the length and orientation of its tail. Every detail is crucial. Historians still argue whether report. Its meaning would be debated, divined, correlated with other events. Your role is to provide the raw. The Maya had developed specific predictive models for comets, or if each appearance was treated as a wholly unique and objective data as accurately as possible. You'd quickly grab a piece of prepared bark paper or a practice slate and sketch its path, making notes about its characteristics while the image is still fresh in your mind. An apprentice might be tasked with noting Ainli sent event. While their planetary and eclipse predictions were sophisticated, the irregular nature of comets makes them far harder to anticipate the exact time, perhaps by observing the position of a known star group relative to the horizon. No time for idle chit without advanced telescopic surveys and orbital mechanics far beyond what was available. So, each one is likely a fresh source of wonder and chat now. It's all business, even if the business is decoding a flaming rock from space. Then often, trepidation. A similar flurry of activity would greet an exceptionally bright meteor. A fireball that lights up there are comets, the smoking stars or Budzek. Unlike meteors, which are gone in an instant, a bright comet can hang in the sky for weeks, sometimes months, a celestial intruder with a long, ghostly landscape for a few heart-stopping seconds, perhaps even leaving a lingering smoky trail or producing audible sonic booms. While tail. The first sighting of a new comet would be a major event. Is it growing brighter? Is its tail lengthening? Ordinary shooting stars are common enough to be noted almost casually. A truly spectacular bolide is another matter entirely. It's a dramatic interruption, a punctuation mark in the sky's grammar. Where did it appear? Which direction did it travel or changing direction? You and your colleagues would track its movement against the background stars night after night, meticulously recording its appearance and position. A mainstream historical fact is that many ancient cultures, including the Maya, viewed comets with considerable apprehension often. What was its color? Did it break apart? These details would be urgently recorded. Remember those stories of sky serpents trying to eat the sun? A meteor like that might seem like a fragment of such a cosmic battle, but associating them with upheaval, famine, pestilence, or the death of rulers. Your codices might even contain records the most anticipated and arguably most culturally significant celestial surprise is an eclipse, whether solar or lunar. A mainstream historical fact is of past cometary appearances and their supposed terrestrial consequences, which you would consult with a sense of trepidation, trying the Maya's remarkable ability to predict eclipses. The eclipse tables in the Dresden Codex, for example, list dates to predict if this new visitor heralds disaster or just a bit of celestial weirdness is above your pay grade. You just record the facts. Eclipses, both solar and lunar, are in a slightly different category. Thanks to the sophisticated astronomical for possible solar and lunar eclipses over a period of about 33 years, with correction factors to maintain accuracy over even longer knowledge accumulated over centuries and recorded in codices like the Dresden and Madrid, you can often predict when and where eclipses will timescales. This meant that while an eclipse was still a profoundly awe-inspiring and often fear-inducing event for the general occur with a good degree of accuracy. The Dresden Codex, for instance, contains tables that can predict solar eclipses. Populous, for you, the astronomer, it was usually an anticipated event, a confirmation of your calculations. However, so, an eclipse might not be a complete surprise, but its actual occurrence is still a profoundly significant and often awe-inspiring. Predicting an eclipse and experiencing it are two different things. As the predicted time for a lunar eclipse approaches, or terrifying event, leading up to a predicted eclipse, there would be a heightened sense of anticipation. A palpable tension would fill the observatory. Even if the codex says the moon goddess is about to be eaten, double-check your calculations. Review the relevant sections of the codices. On the day or night of the eclipse, the sky monster, seeing that dark shadow begin to creep across the luminous face of the full moon, is still a profoundly affecting observatory, would be a hive of focused activity. For a solar eclipse, even a partial one, you'd use method sight. You and your apprentices would meticulously track the progress of the umbral shadow, noting the exact times of first contact, total for indirect observation, perhaps projecting the sun's image through a small hole onto a flat surface, or observing the dap immersion and the re-emergence of the light. You might observe the changing colors on the lunar surface as it passes old shadows under a tree, which would show crescent-shaped suns. Never look directly at the eclipsing sun, through Earth's shadow, sometimes coppery red, sometimes a dull gray. These details are not just for the record piece of wisdom known across cultures and time. Historians still argue whether Maya astronomers understood the precise physical mechanism of eclipse. They are part of the omen. During a solar eclipse, the experience is even more intense. The gradual disappearances, one celestial body obscuring another, in a fully modern scientific sense, or if their understanding was primarily mathematical and observational of the sun, the dimming of daylight in the middle of the day, the stars appearing in an unnaturally dark, allowing for prediction without necessarily a complete grasp of the underlying astrophysics. Your practical knowledge of their cycles is what matters for prediction sky, the drop in temperature, the eerie silence of birds and animals. It's a visceral experience that transcends mere and ritual timing. During a lunar eclipse, as the Earth's shadow slowly creeps across the face of the moon. Scientific observation. The general population might be banging drums, shouting, and making noise to scare away the celestial beast devouring the sun. In turning it a deep blood red, you would carefully note the timing of each phase of the eclipse. When the shadow up in your observatory, the atmosphere is one of urgent, focused work. You're tracking the shadow's path first touches the lunar disk, when the moon is fully immersed, when it begins to emerge again. The reddish color itself, noting the appearance of the corona, the sun's ethereal outer atmosphere, visible only during totality, and the behavior is highly significant, often associated with bad omens. Remember the moon goddess being devoured by a celestial jaguar? This is of planets and bright stars that pop into view. It is, quite literally, a moment when the cosmic order appears to be overthrown, that story playing out in real time. Even if predicted, it's an unnerving spectacle, you might hear. A quirky or fringe tidbit associated with eclipses is the diverse array of folk beliefs surrounding them in many cultures, including what to do or not do. For instance, in some traditions, pregnant women are advised to stay indoors to protect the sounds of the populace down in the city, making noise, banging pots, shouting, playing drums, to scare away the entity, their unborn child. While your understanding is based on celestial mechanics, you are not immune to the profound psychological impact of such an devouring the moon or sun. Up in your observatory, your response is more measured, focused on precise recording, an event. And it's a safe bet that more than a few extra prayers and offerings are being made down in the city. Quirky or fringe tidbit. Some interpretations suggest that the very specific iconography found on certain Maya monuments, showing figures with crossed, "No one wants the sun to stay eaten," no matter how accurately you predicted its temporary celestial snack time. Responding bands in their eyes or with skeletal features might be direct references to eclipse events or the darkness associated with them. Symbolizing to these celestial surprises requires flexibility and quick thinking. Your planned observations for the night might have to be adjusted or even abandoned to focus a temporary death of the sun or moon. It's like seeing a pair of those novelty eclipse glasses depicted on the new phenomenon. Extra scribes might be called if the event is particularly complex or long-lasting, requiring continuous in ancient stone. Not quite, but the symbolism of obscured vision or a darkened celestial body is potent in the aftermath of any recording. The data you gather during these events is exceptionally valuable. It will be analyzed, compared with past events, and entered such unusual celestial event, your work is far from over. You'd spend days carefully transcribing your hurried notes into the sacred almanacs, contributing to the ongoing refinement of Maya astronomical knowledge and divinatory practice. These unexpected celestial events serve formal codices, comparing your observations with those of colleagues, and perhaps participating in councils with priests to discuss the event's potential as powerful reminders that while much of the cosmos operates with clockwork precision, there is always room for the new, the unforeseen, meaning, and the appropriate ritual responses. Your accurate eyewitness account is crucial. Was the comet's tail pointing towards the emblem the message that arrives without prior appointment? They keep you sharp, test your skills, and reaffirm the vital importance of your role glyph of a rival city-state? Did the solar eclipse occur when Mars was in a particularly sensitive part of the sky? As a watchful guardian of the night sky, ready to document whatever wonders or warnings it may choose to reveal, these details matter. You're not just an astronomer, you're a celestial intelligencer, and the universe the night a comet appeared would certainly be one you'd talk about for years. Remember that one? With the tail sent a coded message, Your job is to provide the clearest possible transcript. No pressure again. It just determines the fate that looked like the plumed serpent himself taking flight. Good times, stressful but good. Once the flurry of direct observations subsides, whether it's the end of a long night tracking routine planetary movements, or the immediate aftermath of a dramatic celestial surprise like an eclipse or a newly spotted comet, the equally crucial work of formal record-keeping begins. This is where your meticulous observations are transformed from fleeting sensory data and hurried field notes into enduring knowledge, inscribed into the sacred bark paper books, the glyphic ledgers that form the backbone of Maya astronomical science. You can't just rely on memory or say, "Yeah, Mars looked a bit funny last night." Precision and permanence are key. You retreat to your scriptorium area within the observatory, that sheltered space where your codices are kept safe from the elements and the harsh glare of the sun. If it's after a long night's vigil, the first light of dawn might just be beginning to filter in, providing a soft, natural illumination for your task. Otherwise, if it's during the day, you rely on the diffuse light from high windows, or, if necessary, the flickering, smoky light of an oil lamp. You unroll a fresh section of prepared bark paper, or perhaps turn to a designated logbook codex, its pages already partially filled with the careful script of previous observations. Remember those ancient examples we still have, like the Dresden or Madrid codices? Yours is a living document, actively being created. Your tools are laid out, styluses of varying fineness, pots of black and red ink. The black ink, sabak, made from soot, will be used for the main body of your notations, the dates, the positions, the descriptions of celestial phenomena. The red ink, chak kaab, derived from hematite, iron oxide, or perhaps cochineal insects, is reserved for highlighting important events, celestial bodies of particular significance like Venus, or key numbers in calendrical calculations. This use of color isn't just decorative, it's a vital organizational tool, allowing a reader to quickly identify critical information within a dense page of glyphs. First, you meticulously record the date. This is paramount. You use the long count, that incredibly precise system that fixes a day within a vast cycle of over 5,000 years. It might look something like 9 Baktun, 17 Katun, 0 Tun, 0 Winal, 0 Kin, which modern scholars correlate to a specific date in the Gregorian calendar, around 771 CE in this example. This temporal anchor is what gives your observations lasting value, allowing future astronomers to compare data across centuries, even millennia. A mainstream historical fact is the remarkable continuity of the long count calendar, used for over 1,000 years to record historical and astronomical events across the Maya world. It's like having a universal timestamp for every important observation. Next, you transcribe the details of your observations. This involves translating your mental notes, your temporary jottings on a slate, or perhaps even descriptions dictated by a colleague, into the precise condensed language of Maya glyphs. You'll note the celestial body observed ek, star, moon, kin, sun, or the specific name glyphs for planets like Noek, Venus, or Chak-ek, Mars, sometimes also Venus. You'll record its position perhaps relative to a known constellation, for example, Jupiter was in the coils of the Serpent, or by its observed rising or setting point against your observatory's architectural markers. Historians still argue whether Maya scribes used a standardized set of abbreviations or shorthand glyphs for frequently recorded astronomical terms, especially in working documents, similar to how modern scientists might use specialized notations. The formal codices we have show a highly artistic and complete script, but the day-to-day jottings might have been more pragmatic. You certainly have your own preferred ways of quickly sketching a common glyph or a numerical sequence, an internal shorthand developed through years of practice, which you then elaborate into its full formal form for the permanent record. You might draw a small diagram, perhaps showing the phase of the moon, or the orientation of a comet's tail relative to a cardinal direction. If it was an eclipse, you'd carefully depict the stages of the sun or moon being obscured. The images in the codices are not just illustrations, they are integral parts of the data. A picture can indeed be worth 1,000 glyphs, especially when describing the visual appearance of a celestial event. You think of those detailed drawings in the Dresden Codex depicting the synodic cycle of Venus, with the god Kukulkan making offerings at different stages. Your own small illustrations strive for that level of clarity and symbolic resonance. One quirky or fringe tidbit concerns the actual act of writing. Some ethnolinguists and calligraphers speculate that the very act of painting the glyphs, the direction of the strokes, the flow of the brush or stylus, might have had its own ritual significance, embedding a kind of sacred intentionality into the record itself. While difficult to prove when you are carefully forming a complex glyph, ensuring each line and dot is perfectly placed, there is a certain meditative quality to it, a feeling that you are doing more than just transcribing information, you are participating in a sacred act. It's certainly not just dashing off a quick email. There's no autocorrect for badly painted glyphs, and spilling ink on a nearly finished page is the ancient astronomers' equivalent of a hard drive crash. Devastating. If multiple astronomers observe the same event, you might collate their notes, discussing any discrepancies and agreeing on the most accurate final entry. This collaborative aspect is crucial for ensuring the reliability of the records. Sometimes a junior apprentice might have been overly enthusiastic in their estimation of a meteor's brightness, or another colleague, observing from a slightly different location within the city, might have noted a slight variation in the timing of a star's rising. These differences are discussed, reconciled if possible, or noted as variations. It's early peer review in a sense. Once an entry is complete, the ink needs to dry thoroughly before the page can be turned or the codex folded. You might set the page aside carefully, perhaps using a small weight made of smooth stone to keep it flat. Then you move on to the next observation, or if the recording session is finished, you meticulously clean your styluses and store your inks. The codices themselves are precious. They would be carefully rolled or folded and stored in a dry, secure place, perhaps in a wooden chest or a stone-lined crypt within the observatory, protected from moisture, insects, and accidental damage. The survival of even a few of these delicate bark paper books to the present day is a testament to the care attributed to them, and also a stroke of incredible luck. This careful, unhurried process of creating your glyphic ledgers is the final, critical step in your observational cycle. It transforms fleeting moments of celestial insight into a permanent legacy of knowledge, a gift to future generations of skywatchers and a vital resource for the priests, rulers, and people of your time. Your hand, guided by ancient tradition and sharpened by rigorous training, pens the ongoing story of the heavens, one sacred symbol at a time. As the long hours of your nocturnal vigil begin to draw to a close, or perhaps as you reach the end of a pre-assigned shift within a larger team of observers, the time comes for the changing of the guard. Even the most dedicated astronomer needs rest, and the sky, of course, keeps on turning regardless of human stamina. This transition is not a brusque clocking out. It's a more subtle, often sleepy transfer of responsibility and immediate knowledge, ensuring continuity in the ongoing celestial surveillance. You might start to feel the bone-deep weariness set in as the eastern sky shows the very first, almost imperceptible hint of lightening. The stars, your companions for so many hours, are still brilliant, but you know their reign is nearing its end for the night. Your apprentices, if they've managed to stay awake through your fascinating, to you at least, disquisitions on stellar proper motion, are likely drooping, their youthful energy finally depleted. You can't blame them. It's been a long haul since that first ascent up the observatory steps, what feels like an eternity ago. The arrival of your colleague is usually quiet, almost stealthy. They've made their own pre-dawn trek up to the observatory, perhaps passing you on their way down on previous mornings. There's a soft greeting, a shared understanding of the unique lifestyle you both lead. No need for loud hellos that might disturb any last-minute delicate observations. Maybe it's old Ek Balam, his eyes, though aged, still remarkably sharp for picking out faint nebulae. Or perhaps it's young Ix Khan, who has a knack for predicting localized weather shifts that might affect viewing. The transfer of information is concise and focused. You'd point out the current positions of any key planets being tracked. Mars is just clearing the great turtle's back, you might murmur, indicating the specific asterism. Jupiter remains high near the zenith. No unusual atmospheric phenomena noted in the last watch, other than that brief meteor shower around the Serpent's Eye asterism 2 hours past culmination. You'd mention any equipment issues, perhaps an oil lamp that's burning a bit too smokily, or a particular sighting stick that seems to have developed a slight warp from the night dew. Little details that can make the next observer's shift smoother. You might quickly show them any fresh notations you've made on a working slate, a specific timing, an unusual brightness fluctuation in a variable star, the path of a particularly impressive meteor. These jottings will be formally entered into the codices later, but the immediate hot data is passed on verbally. This is crucial because sometimes an event begins on one astronomer's watch and continues into the next. For example, if a new comet was spotted, you'd ensure your colleague knows its exact last seen position and apparent trajectory. That new smoking star we discussed? It's moving towards the western fish effigy slower than anticipated. Your colleague would nod, absorbing the information, their eyes already scanning the heavens, taking up the mantle of observation. A mainstream historical fact is that Maya society was highly organized, and major ceremonial centers with observatories likely had teams of astronomer priests. It wouldn't be solely reliant on one individual pulling all-nighters every single night. Shared responsibility and staggered shifts would be essential for continuous long-term data collection, especially for phenomena that require round-the-clock monitoring, like the appearance of a new comet or the progress of an eclipse visible over many hours. Your handover is part of this organized system. Historians still argue whether there were formalized shift reports or logbooks passed between astronomers in a more structured way beyond the eventual codex entries. While the codices represent the final curated data, the immediate operational transfer of information likely relied on this direct verbal briefing, perhaps supplemented by temporary notes on erasable surfaces. You can imagine a sort of celestial passing of the baton. A quirky or fringe tidbit is the anthropological observation that in many traditional societies with deep astronomical knowledge, there's often a specific vocabulary, almost a kind of specialized slang or jargon, used by the practitioners that might be opaque to outsiders. You and your colleague might use certain terms or shorthand phrases for particular star patterns or observational conditions that an uninitiated apprentice or a modern historian would find baffling. "The sky toad is looking a bit muddy tonight, eh?" Might be a perfectly understandable, if slightly bizarre-sounding comment on the seeing conditions near a specific asterism known colloquially as the sky toad. Your bleary mumbling about the jaguar's sneeze actually being 3 distinct faint stars might be a critical piece of info for them. The departing astronomer, you in this instance, doesn't just bolt for their sleeping mat. There's often a brief period of overlap where both of you might observe together for a few minutes, ensuring a smooth transition. You might point out a faint object that requires fully dark-adapted eyes to see, something your newly arrived colleague, fresh from the world of flickering torchlight on their path up, might not immediately spot. This ensures no subtle detail is missed during the handover. It's a professional courtesy, a mark of dedication to the collective task. Once you're confident that your colleague is fully appraised and has taken control of the observational flow, you offer a quiet farewell. "May the stars guide your watch," or some similar sentiment. There's a sense of camaraderie, of shared purpose in this small, dedicated group. You are the night watchers, the interpreters of the celestial script. You leave them to their patient vigil, the observatory platform now their domain. The air is noticeably cooler, damp with the dew that settles heavily before dawn. You can almost taste the sunrise coming, even though the sky is still dark. The responsibility lifts from your shoulders, replaced by a profound weariness and the anticipation of much-needed rest. The data from your shift is secure in your mind and on your temporary notes, ready for more formal transcription after you've had some sleep. The sky is in capable hands. Now, all that remains is the journey homeward, a mirror image of your ascent hours ago, but this time with the pull of sleep rather than the call of duty guiding your steps. With the handover complete and your colleague now silhouetted against the fading starlight, engrossed in their own communion with the cosmos, you begin your descent. The homeward path, retracing the steps you took in the darkness what feels like a lifetime ago, is a profoundly different experience. Then, your senses were sharp with anticipation, your mind focused on the tasks ahead. Now, a deep, bone-settling weariness pulls at you, and your primary focus is simply putting one foot in front of the other without tripping over that same annoying route you always almost trip over. The eastern horizon is no longer a uniform black, but a bruised purple, tinged with the faintest whisper of pearly gray. The brightest stars, like steadfast Venus now perhaps transitioning to her role as morning star if the timing is right, still command attention, but their lesser brethren are beginning to fade, surrendering to the encroaching light. The air is cool, heavy with dew. Every leaf, every blade of grass seems to be weeping silver tears in the pre-dawn gloom. Your mantle, pulled close against the chill, is damp. As you descend from the elevated position of the observatory, the sounds of the jungle subtly change. The high-altitude breezes die down, and the calls of nocturnal creatures become more distinct, less filtered by distance. You might hear the last hoot of an owl, or the snuffling of a foraging animal in the undergrowth nearby. Perhaps that coatimundi from yesterday is still optimistically searching for breakfast. It's a liminal time, this boundary between true night and first light. You feel a bit like a creature of the night yourself, returning to your den as the day world prepares to awaken. The path seems steeper on the way down, or maybe it's just your tired legs protesting. Each step jars a little more. You know this path intimately, yet in the deceptive light of pre-dawn, familiar shapes can play tricks on the eyes. That oddly shaped stone you always use as a marker. For a moment it looks like a crouching jaguar. You blink, and it's just a stone again. Too many hours staring at star beasts, perhaps. A light chuckle escapes you, quickly muffled. Wouldn't want to wake the actual jaguars. A mainstream historical fact is the physical toll that such dedicated astronomical work would take. Hours spent standing, craning the neck, and focusing intensely in low light, often in chilly or damp conditions, would lead to muscle strain, eye fatigue, and other occupational hazards. While you're a revered scholar, you're not immune to the basic aches and pains of a demanding job. Your lower back definitely has a few choice glyphs it would like to communicate to you right now. As you get closer to the main settlement, the first signs of human activity begin to filter through the jungle sounds. A distant dog barks, quickly silenced. The smell of wood smoke, more concentrated now, as early risers kindle their hearth fires. Perhaps the rhythmic pat-pat-pat of a woman beginning to shape maize dough for the morning tortillas. A comforting domestic sound that signals the impending start of the communal day. It's a world away from the silent celestial dialogues you've just been a part of. Historians still argue whether specialized astronomers like yourself lived in secluded compounds near the observatories or within the general populace. If the latter, your walk now takes you past the shuttered homes of sleeping artisans, farmers, and merchants. You move quietly, a shadow among shadows, respecting their rest. Your workday is ending just as theirs is about to begin. It gives you a peculiar sense of existing slightly out of sync with the rhythm of ordinary life, a common feeling for night shift workers throughout history, ancient or modern. One quirky or fringe tidbit is the occasional archaeological find of star charts or astronomical diagrams etched onto cave walls or portable stone artifacts, suggesting that perhaps not all astronomical observation and knowledge was confined to the formal, state-sanctioned observatories. Perhaps amateur sky watchers or individuals in more remote areas also kept their own records, their own interpretations of the heavens. You, with your official codices and meticulously aligned observatory, are at the apex of this practice. But the human fascination with the stars is likely widespread. You idly wonder if Farmer Khan, whose milpa you are about to pass, ever looks up and wonders about the path of Mars, or if he's just hoping it doesn't herald a drought. Probably the latter. Practical concerns always trump planetary ephemerides for most folk. The first true rays of dawn might be starting to pierce through the canopy as you finally reach the edge of your own dwelling or the compound where you reside. The eastern sky is now a blaze of color, a vibrant spectacle that you, ironically, have your back to as you descend. Your focus is on home, on your woven reed mat, on the oblivion of sleep. You probably smell faintly of cool night air, damp earth, and maybe a hint of the smoky oil from your lamp if you had to use one. Not exactly Chanel, no. 5. But it's the scent of a night well spent in the service of the stars. You might pause for a moment at your doorway, turning to look back briefly at the highest point of the observatory, now sharply defined against the brightening sky. Another night's work done. The celestial observations have been made, the knowledge gathered. Soon it will be transcribed, analyzed, and woven into the tapestry of Maya understanding. But for now, your role as observer is complete. The baton has been passed. The sun, your daytime counterpart, is about to take center stage, and your dominion, the star-filled night, recedes. You unlace your sandals, if you wear them, at the entrance to your hut. The cool earth floor feels good under your tired feet. The sounds of your household, if you live with family, might be stirring, a soft cough, the rustle of someone else awakening. Or perhaps you live a more solitary life, dedicated wholly to your astronomical duties. Either way, the promise of rest is overwhelmingly inviting. The celestial patterns, the star charts, the glyphs, they still swirl in your mind's eye, but fatigue is a heavy blanket starting to muffle them. The homeward path has ended. Slumber awaits. You enter your dwelling, the familiar close scent of your small home a comfort after the wide-open spaces of the night. The transition from the vast, cool expanse of the observatory to this intimate human-scale shelter is always a distinct sensation. The lingering darkness inside the hut is a welcome respite from the rapidly intensifying light outside. You move with the economy of long habit, your body aching for rest, your mind still buzzing with the after-images of starlight and the intricate dance of celestial mechanics. Your patate, the woven reed mat, lies waiting. It seems like the most luxurious bed in the world right now, more inviting than any feathered couch in the Ahau's palace. You unfasten your X, the simple hip cloth, letting it fall, and perhaps carefully fold your cotton mantle if it's not too damp, placing it aside. The coolness of the packed earth floor against your bare skin is a brief, pleasant shock before you finally lower yourself onto the mat. The familiar feel of the woven reeds against your back, your legs, is a signal to your body that the day, or rather the night's work, is truly done. For a few moments you lie there staring up at the underside of the thatched roof, though your eyes don't truly focus on it. Instead, constellations still wheel behind your eyelids. You might mentally replay a particularly complex observation from the night, the precise moment Venus dipped below the horizon, or the way the shadow advanced during that lunar eclipse you helped track weeks ago. Remember that? Or maybe it's the newly recorded data for Mars's retrograde loop, the glyphs for its positions already taking shape in your mental draft for the codex entry you'll complete after you wake. These celestial patterns have a way of imprinting themselves onto your consciousness, lingering like the afterglow of a bright light. The sounds of the awakening city are more muted here, inside your hut. The calls of vendors hawking their wares, the shouts of children, the distant rhythm of drums from a temple ceremony, they reach you as a softened murmur, a background hum that, paradoxically, helps to lull you towards sleep. It's the soundtrack of the world you serve, the world whose rhythms you help to define through your celestial observations. A mainstream historical fact is that the Maya calendar, derived from this meticulous astronomy, governed almost every aspect of life, from agricultural cycles and market days to religious festivals and even the timing of warfare. Your sleepy work underpins the very structure of their society. Historians still argue whether Maya astronomers adhered to strict sleep schedules, or if their patterns were more fluid, dictated by the demands of specific celestial events and the need for recovery. Given the irregularity of phenomena like comets or the timing of certain planetary alignments that might occur at odd hours, a rigid 9 to 5, or rather 9 to dawn approach, seems unlikely. Flexibility, and the ability to catch up on sleep when the cosmos allowed, was probably key. You certainly feel that need for flexibility as you try to coax your buzzing brain into shutting down. Okay, Jupiter, you can stop doing your little celestial cha-cha in my head now. Bedtime. A quirky or fringe tidbit relates to ancient dream interpretation. While many cultures, including the Maya, placed great importance on dreams as omens or messages from the gods, one wonders if an astronomer's dreams were particularly star-filled and glyph-laden. Do you dream of new constellations forming, or of goddesses writing themselves? Perhaps your dreams are a chaotic jumble of star charts and jaguar gods playing pits with planetary spheres. Or maybe, like most overworked people, you just dream of finally getting a full night's uninterrupted sleep. A luxury as rare as a blue moon. A literal blue moon, which, by the way, you know isn't actually blue. Usually, you close your eyes. The mental images of star fields begin to soften, the sharp points of light blurring into a gentle haze. The weariness in your limbs deepens, a heavy, pleasant ache that pulls you down into the embrace of the mat. You might idly scratch a mosquito bite you acquired during your vigil, a small, itchy reminder of the less glamorous side of your profession. It's not all poetic stargazing. Sometimes it's just swatting bugs in the dark while trying to count how many degrees a planet has shifted. The intricate details of the calendar round, the long count, the Tzolk'in's 260-day sacred cycle intertwined with the Hobbes' 365-day solar year, these complex systems that you live and breathe begin to recede from the forefront of your mind. The names of the day lords, the patrons of the months, the cycles of the moon and Venus, all the mental arithmetic and observational acuity can finally rest. You've done your part. The observations are logged or will be soon. The knowledge is secure. Sleep comes not always immediately, but as a gradual surrender. It might be a light doze at first, punctuated by the lingering awareness of the sounds outside, the quality of the light seeping through the cracks in your hut's walls. But then the deeper currents take over. The astronomer, the scholar, the keeper of celestial time, finally succumbs to the simple human need for rest. The stars continue their silent journey across the vastness of the sky, unseen by you now, but their patterns, their stories, their ancient light are woven into the very fabric of your being. They will be there when you wake, ready for another night, another cycle, another turn in the grand, slow, beautiful, and yes, sometimes exquisitely boring cosmic dance. The last conscious thought might be a fleeting image of a perfectly aligned shadow, or the elegant curve of a newly inscribed glyph, before the darkness behind your eyelids becomes complete, undisturbed by even the faintest starlight, until your own internal rhythms or the demands of your sacred duty call you forth once more. Word count 1075. And so, your daily cycle as a Maya astronomer finds its gentle close, much as the great celestial cycles you so diligently track continue their unending dance. You lie in the shadowed quiet of your dwelling, a world away from the keen-edged awareness of the observatory platform. The murmurs of the awakening city outside become softer, more distant, a gentle counterpoint to the deep, rhythmic breathing that now claims you. The complex calculations, the precise alignments, the weight of cosmic interpretation, all dissolve into the profound simplicity of rest. The images of star-strewn skies, the looping paths of planets, the ghostly apparitions of comets, or the sudden drama of an eclipse, they may still flicker at the edges of your unconscious mind, but their clarity fades, softened by the encroaching tides of sleep. Your mind, a repository of celestial lore and intricate timelines, is allowed to unspool to release its nightly burden of vigilance. The memories of cold stone beneath your feet, the scent of night-blooming flowers, the distant cry of a nocturnal creature, all meld into the texture of dreams, less as distinct recollections and more as a deeply felt sense of belonging to the rhythms of both the earth and the sky. You are but one link in a long, unbroken chain of skywatchers. Your life a dedicated thread in the vast tapestry of Maya understanding. And as sleep enfolds you, a profound sense of peace settles in, the peace of a duty fulfilled, of knowledge gathered and safeguarded. The stars will continue their silent, majestic procession across the heavens, their ancient light falling on a world that is, for a few precious hours, oblivious to your watch. But their patterns are etched within you, a silent wisdom that will reawaken with the coming dusk. For now, there is only the deep, restorative darkness, the gentle rise and fall of your own breath, and the promise of stillness. Let the celestial spheres turn. The astronomer rests until the stars call again.